All right, hey guys, Chris here from Belgrade, Serbia. I'm joined today by Andrew Henderson from the Nomad Capitalist. Thanks for joining me today.
Great to be with you, Chris. Thanks for welcome to Belgrade.
Thank you. I've been sort of chasing you up since the start of the year because I get a lot of questions about tax, and people want to know what is the tax situation once you become a nomad, and they ask what I do personally with taxes, and our schedules haven't added up. They just haven't linked up until your assistant emailed me this week and said, "Greetings from Belgrade," and I'm like, whoa, we're in the same location. So I know you're extremely busy, so thanks for taking the time out on your Saturday to talk about this sort of stuff. So for the people that aren't aware about yourself and Nomad Capitalist, if you could give a quick overview of yourself and what you guys do.
Yeah, so Nomad Capitalist has been really what I've lived for about a decade now. And I remember I always tell the story being 12 years old, and my parents kind of just came up with these, what I call the 5 magic words, go where you're treated best. Yeah. And when I was a young adult starting businesses in the US, I've forgotten that you have to pay all these really high taxes when you make a lot of money. Yeah. And so my journey began with trying to figure out how to go where I'm treated best, from everything from banking to taxes to dating to whatever else that you want. And so now 5 years we've been writing about and videoing about and podcasting about and now helping people figure out what to do basically in 3 areas. One is the financial tax area that we're talking about. The second is, where do you live and where's your citizenship? How do you become another citizen? And the third area is, how do you spend and invest the money that you save on taxes? So really, I look at it as the tax is really the on-ramp usually, but it all kind of blends together because, as we'll discuss, where you are based physically, where you spend your time, where you're a citizen of, where you're all these different things, they all work together. And so just saying, I've got a tax issue, a lot of people can advise you on just tax, but then there's going to be those other parts of the equation that you find out also play a role, and people I think are getting a lot of bad advice because they have certain other pieces of their puzzle that impact the tax and nobody's addressing it holistically.
Okay, excellent. It's all about kind of using the global age that we're in now, and you don't necessarily have to live where you grew up, bank where you grow up, have your company where you're based. So like I said at the start, people have been asking me about taxes. Mainly they ask me about what I do for tax. And I think what they're really asking is like, well, what's the situation once you leave your country and you live largely a nomadic lifestyle and you're traveling a lot? Do you still need to pay tax back home? What's sort of the tax situation? How, to those sort of people, how would you say to think about taxes as you start to be location independent?
Well, I think the first thing that I do, and I see this, I've really removed myself from what, the Facebook groups and the social media groups and the forums and stuff like that, which, you think the forum, it's like some modern thing. I mean, we were on forums in 1996 looking at, moving to New Zealand. So the forums, I think they were never really the best source of information. And people say, hey, what do you do? Yeah. It is really dangerous because there are, as I said, what's your citizenship? What's your residence? What are your travel patterns? What kind of business do you do? Is it consulting? Yeah. Is it coaching? Is it selling a physical product? Is it selling a digital product? There's so many different factors that come into play that when you go on these forums, it's like, what do you do? Well, what you do is not what I should do or anyone else should do. Yeah. And I think the danger is, and this is something that I found the hard way, is I lost a lot of money kind of trying to do my own version of what do you do, of trying to kind of research my way and figure it out and delay and procrastinate. Mm-hmm. And what I tell people is, it's important to you or it's not. The first thing I think that I found personally, again, as someone who's done this, not a guy who works at KPMG or PwC who just pushes paper around, but as someone who's done this myself, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that the actions you take are relatively meaningless once you're in the proper mindset of, one, diagnosing the problem properly, figuring out how it all works together, and then figuring out what it takes to get it done. So for me, again, in my experience, it's getting that proper mindset that you're committed to solving the problem of tax, and that you want to, get it done specifically for you. Whether you're just kind of getting started in a business and you're becoming a nomad because you want to make a grand or two a month and live in Chiang Mai and you just talk to someone at H&R Block in the U.S., or whether you're at much upper level and you need really specialized help. For me, I know people say, "Oh, just tell me which form to file." Really, once you know that, that's once you know, that's easy. But you have to do the prep work first.
Okay, I think what people are kind of getting wrong, and I want you to correct me on this if I'm wrong, is that once you leave your country, like say for instance, I'm Australian, I leave Australia, does that entitle me to like suddenly I'm a global citizen, I don't pay any tax? And I think at least I studied a little bit of tax law in university, I'm no expert, but from what I learned from that is like you need to set up a residency somewhere else, to kind of show your government that you're kind of leaving their system. And I think that just by leaving and going traveling, that's kind of how your government would see it. You're just going off and sort of traveling. You're banking, if you're banking still at home, if you have a company, your company's still at home. All of that is still at home. So it's not as simple as just, I'm leaving Australia, I don't have to pay tax anymore, right?
Right, and there's this thing that I think a lot of people think that, I remember, again, I grew up with this stuff. My father would look every year in the Wall Street Journal, the most free economies in the world, and every year it seems like the United States, where I grew up, was going down one. Like it was always kind of trending downward. That's kind of where the Go Where You're Treated Best came in. But yeah, so I knew about this citizenship-based taxation that we have in the United States, where you're always on the hook. As long as you're a U.S. citizen, you're going to have to file. You're going to have to set up a structure. It doesn't mean you have to pay anything. I filed a return recently and last year as well. It's like this thick when you print it out, but I paid zero legally because I've structured everything properly. It took a lot of work. But I think I did something called the Nomad Tax Trap, where it's exactly what you're talking about. It's people who just say, well, as long as I move myself, nothing else matters. Well, we can try and break this down in this interview, but the simple answer is every little piece matters in some way. Some pieces more than others. Some you can leave unattended. But just to leave and say I'm not going to pay anymore, wrong. The other thing that I think a lot of people have done historically, I don't see this so much anymore as you're getting more and more nomads, but kind of at the beginning of this, there was a lot of, you just leave Australia for as long as you're gone for 183 days. Like that's what they look at. Well, that's one of 4 tests. There are 4 different tests. Okay, that's one. And what people kind of misunderstand is the days test, for example. You come here to Serbia, that's really the only test. Did you spend 183 days in the country? Even if you're on a tourist visa, maybe they could come and say you should pay, because that's the days test. In Serbia, it's really you're here or you're not. In Australia, you've got 4 tests. In Canada, UK, kind of the similar case. And, really the days test in a place like Australia, Canada, these big high-tax, English-speaking Western countries, is, well, if you do qualify, then you're screwed. It's over. Like, that's all we need. If you don't get it, okay, you were here 150 days. All right, let's look at the other 3. And so people don't understand how the tests work together. As you said, right, to be a little crude, I guess, we use the phrase, it's not just about moving your assets anymore. I was just in Vanuatu. That was like built back in the days when Australian guys would just move their assets to Vanuatu and just stay in Australia, or American guys would have some guy on a plane from a Swiss bank come and pick up their bag of cash and take it back. That's moving your assets. Now you really need to move your ass, but you probably also need to do something with the assets as well.
You mentioned U.S., and I think that's probably your specialty, right? Because you're from the United States yourself, right?
My real specialty is the English-speaking countries. So UK, Canada, US, Australia. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, that happens to make up the majority of my audience, so that works. I looked at the demographics before I came, and 36% of you guys watching from the United States. And I've heard certain things about the United States, like a $100,000 threshold on overseas earnings and little things like that. For the US audience, what's the situation with, briefly about sort of offshore going, like being digital nomad and what you earn?
So if you ever filed a US tax return and you didn't quite get it done by April 15th and you had to extend it, You can file an extension, they give you an extension. But they don't give you an extension to pay, they give you an extension to file. And that's kind of how I look at the laws for US citizens. There's no change in the forms you have to file. In fact, there's more forms you have to file. There's no change in the laws that you're subject to. There's no really change in anything. You're subject to all of it. You're subject to pay tax. But you do get this exemption. If you have earned income, it's an earned income exclusion, where you can earn, $102,000. The next year it'll be $103,000 probably in income, earned income. So if you're doing, like rental properties, just sitting on the beach doing nothing, that's not going to work in all likelihood. If you're doing rental properties, that's like your business that you do 8 hours every day, maybe that'll work. But you get this 102, 103 grand that you can take on top of a couple other smaller, basic exemptions, and you can earn that much money overseas, and you can exempt that from federal income tax. In 45 or 46 states, the state generally mirrors the federal tax. Okay. If you're from like California or a couple other states, you're probably gonna have to do something to get out of the state tax. Yeah. And then the other issues, we have Medicare, we have Social Security tax, kind of the employment job taxes. People who have companies can structure their company overseas to make sure they're not paying that. A lot of the nomads I come across, though, they're just like, I'm just kind of going overseas. I'm a freelancer, or there's 3 of us. I'm just kind of building my team. I'm doing business through my own name. That person's going to pay probably 15% more than they should. They may qualify for the exclusion, but they're still going to pay 15% in taxes that they might not have to pay. So again, a lot of factors. If you make less than 102 grand, fine. If you want to go and live in a high-tax country, like another high-tax country that's a tax treaty, fine. So we're not going to help you save tax to move to France. Yeah. You'll just pay France, not the U.S. But really, the ideal person is someone who's got some kind of active business, some kind of active service they're providing. For me, 85, 90% of people who come my way are people who can qualify for kind of the biggest tax exemptions. Yeah. 10 or 15% of people are going to have to still pay something. But, really, if you're at the 100 grand or less, you're probably in good shape. It's just a matter of how do you structure it. If you're over that, then you really need to have a good structure to make sure that you're basically paying yourself a salary, that you're working for your own business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't look at it like this, where you have a company. You're also an employee in your company. Yeah. Right? And so your compensation as an employee, if you're from the US or Australia, you may think, well, all the money just comes to me. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to. Yeah. So there are ways to structure it within reason where people can, again, legally pay zero.
So I'm starting to see now, and I kind of already knew this, that the sort of situation of taxes for digital nomads, there's no one-line answer. This is an area of increasing, as you go deeper into it, increasing complexity, and I guess that's
those of us from the English-speaking country, we have the worst time.
Yeah. Okay.
I will tell you, just not to be like the alarmist. We had some guys or people who worked for us. Like we had an Austrian guy. Yeah. He went down. I think there's a couple countries in Europe. You go to the city hall, you just kind of check out, and they can audit you. And so, are you really living here? But if you're from Europe and you're in the Schengen area, it's a lot easier to be like, well, no, I wasn't there. Yeah. That's when I tell people keep a spreadsheet. Of where were you every day? So if you're ever audited by someone, you can prove. But in countries like Austria or some other countries, it's really not that complicated. You just go in and you say, I'm leaving. Okay, great, have a nice life. And then you're kind of off the hook. Yeah. I think that'll become more complicated as this rise of what you're talking about, and more nomads. Eventually they're going to be losing all these people, especially in Europe. I know someone who was from Germany and bounced around, and then it's I'm just going to go hang in Portugal for 2 years. Yeah. And nobody really found this person, but someone should have, and they should have been paying tax in Portugal. So it will be more complicated, but really the hardest ones are the ones that US, Canada, Australia, UK, New Zealand. Yeah. Those are the toughest ones. If you're here in Serbia, I think that they're not really as difficult to comply with. You just say I'm leaving, and they leave you alone. But obviously, a lot of us are not so fortunate.
So I kind of already know the answer to this question, but what is the stage people should be looking at things like this in terms of maybe they're already nomadic, or they have an online business that's not tied to any one location? When should they start to look at, sort of setting up residency overseas, perhaps, or setting up a company overseas to minimize tax, get different benefits? kind of all the stuff that you guys do at Nomad Capitalist.
Right, and the company part, obviously, I mean, you may or may not need, most people probably should have a company. The residency you may or may not need. When do you do it? I mean, I've said, again, from experience of having done this, if you're not motivated to do it, you're not going to get the results. You know, I think that, I mean, how many times have we got, I just did it the other day. I do it very rarely, but I knew this person. I got an email from this person. Oh, I have a free ebook on how to like do this, that, and the other. All right, I'll get the free ebook. The ebook is just sitting there.
Yeah.
It's free. I didn't do anything. I don't value it, right?
Yeah.
I've bought things for, you know, people are, oh, I have some $27 course on how to lower your taxes overseas. Really?
Yeah.
I know guys who've gone to KPMG and spent $2 million learning how to, so the $27 course, and you're not going to be motivated. So for me, the motivation is the issue. Listen, let's be honest. Most people running around, whether it's here in Serbia, whether Australia, the US, whatever, you know, California still has plenty of people. It's like the most ridiculous draconian tax laws on planet Earth, in my opinion. The California Franchise Tax Board, 38 million people live there and apparently are happy to pay.
Yeah.
So the average person is not going to do this. There are guys paying millions of dollars. I'd say that's a lot of money, and that they could go overseas and run their business from somewhere other than California and save millions of dollars, but they're not motivated. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's a guy who's paying 20 grand who's really angry about it. There is a cost to doing this. I'm not a fan of going online and just getting the $7.99 offshore company special from some company, you know, because then you get it like, well, where's the bank account? And then it's a rabbit's hole of problems. Yeah. So, you know, when is it like you can't take it anymore? When you know, I get guys who casually, when you're making $5,000, $10,000, occasionally I get like messages, people refer me or whatever, and they say, I'm paying $8 grand, I can't take it. And it just seems like it's more of a thing for them where it's like, I should be paying zero, I can't be paying zero, why not do it? Well, because your time has value, one. There's a monetary value on your time that you could be spending doing something else and generating income. Yeah. And it's going to cost you to do it. And it's going to cost you more to do it right. Yeah. So this idea that like you're like a libertarian, you just don't like to pay, or I can, therefore I will. No, it has to be like, you know, 50 grand a year. What I could be buying a beach house every year with that, or I could be, which you can't, you know, around here. You can't.
To be a fire under your ass.
You have to be. You know, you do.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, on a personal note, you talk about safe havens and kind of go where you're treated best. I just wanted to know what were your personal favorite safe havens or places that you found to have really good conditions to what you're looking for.
Well, again, so I mean, here's the go where you're treated best. You know, 50 years they came up with the idea of flag theory. You plant a flag. There were 3 flags: where you spend your time, where your company. You know, very basic stuff. I look at it as you can have unlimited flags. Yeah. You know, where's the best place? I just wrote about this. Where's the best place to go and get Botox? Where's the best place to go and get your teeth cleaned? Where's the best place to you know, to buy your sweaters? Yeah. You know, whatever, right? So. I mean, for me, I guess one of my havens is the United States. When I needed to get a ton of like little tchotchke stuff, you know, and I needed to get like my facial masks and all my different, you know, things, like the little things. I don't know where the heck to find that in Serbia. I have to go to 27 stores. I shipped it to my friend. I went to his house when I was there for 5 days and got my big box and got on the plane. Yeah. So that's a haven. But I think that for companies, for residency, for business, I think Eastern Europe is a gem that's underrated for spending time, for some people for residences. I'm a big fan of the country of Georgia. I think Hong Kong is a great place, but they're making it really hard to operate in a lot of cases these days. You know, there's kind of the old school safe havens, the more recent safe havens, like the Hong Kongs, the Singapores. Good places that are institutionally safe. If you have gold or something, you want to store it. If you want to store your classic car somewhere safe, tax-free, those are great. Can you get a bank account there? In some cases, we do it. Increasingly difficult for the average guy in the street. And then you've got the Serbias, the Georgias, the countries like that, which are kind of up and coming, which are offering other things. So I think that a nice balance is important. Yeah. If I'm putting my money somewhere, I probably, don't want to put my money in, Colombia or something. Your money's not going to go away probably, but there's a better place. It's not go where you're treated okay, it's go where you're treated best. Yeah. So if I can find Singapore or Liechtenstein or somewhere like that, if they'll allow me, then I'll go there. But where do I want to live? Where do I want to bank? Where do I want to have a company? Where do I want to date? Where do I want to whatever? I mean, what are some of the best safe havens? I mean, there's probably 10 or 15 or 20 different things you could look for, and I think that really maximizing those is important.
Okay. Is there any one that has a really good combination of the things you're looking for?
Well, again, I'm me, right? I mean, so and I mean, here's the funny thing: I'm in Serbia, and I'm thinking, it'd be nice to go to Asia in a little while. I'm going to slow down my travel this year, but I like the idea of kind of having hubs around the world.
Yeah.
I go to Montenegro. It's just this there in a little beach house, and I don't want to go there in December. Yeah. So I think that different things. I love Hong Kong, but again, they're making it more difficult. As much as I want to love it, I can't. So, what's my one place? I don't think you want one place.
Okay.
I think that if because again, I'm from the United States. When I was 12 years old, my parents, thought of moving to New Zealand or moving to Australia, and that's fine. That was a long time ago, and that was kind of pre-nomad. But that's not really go where you're treated best. That's pack up in one place that has some good and some bad, and move to another place with some good, some bad. We don't really want to do that. Sometimes we can make it overlap to where the bank is the same as the company or something. Yeah. But you don't want, because no country is the best for anything, Chris. Hong Kong is great. Listen, I guess, could we afford to live in Hong Kong? I don't know. Do I want to pay $13,000 a month to live in Pacific Place? Not really. I can go to Kuala Lumpur and live there. But I may not want to bank in Kuala Lumpur. So, I think that to make it all overlap, you're going to do what we would have been doing in New Zealand. It's like, well, hey, this is better here, but this is worse. You don't want anything worse. You want only the best.
Okay, I see. So it's just as much diversification as you need to kind of get the best benefits of everything, I guess. And the situations change all the time, I'm sure. So maybe you might have a bank account or a company in one place, and then the place where you're treated best for that changes over time, and then you move there. So I guess at the core of this is the freedom to move where you're treated best as well.
Again, speaking from experience, I've learned that certainly there's a personal efficiency that's important. Yeah. A lot of Hong Kong banks, if you want to send like a transfer or something, okay, just fax us the form. Let me go find my fax machine, right? So very safe, like rock solid banks. They make the most safe banks in the world. But at a certain point, you say, you know what? Okay, let me go into the next safest because that's still going to be really, really safe. But I'm tired of looking for a fax machine. Yeah. So it does change. That's kind of what the nomad means. The nomad doesn't mean hopping all around the world. I've got some guys who say, I want to live in one very tax-friendly place for 9 months a year. Yeah. That doesn't sound very nomadic.
Okay, so basically it's different for everybody, and that's why it's important to get a personalized approach and either do your own research or come to you guys and get the expert advice on what's going to be ideal for you and what your preferences are, right?
I think that's important for this reason. Again, nothing exists in a vacuum, right? So I had some guys. I had a guy from Australia, I believe, last year. Andrew, I've got a Seychelles company. That's like one of the old ones that no tax, no reporting, no anything. Well, that's great, right? Yeah. But countries like ours are cracking down on places like that because they don't like the competition. And so none of the people who accept credit cards for him want to send him money to his Seychelles company anymore. Yeah. So this guy had a $250,000 out of some big amount, and every day it was building up. So, he had a banking problem because nobody wanted to send it to a Seychelles bank. But they also had a company problem because no other bank outside of the Seychelles, by and large, wants to open an account for a Seychelles company. And certainly no bank that this credit card company would have accepted any better than the current one. So, I think that we all see situations like this in life where kind of one thing leads to another, and that's what a lot of people find themselves in this situation. There are some places, you probably can't go wrong going to Hong Kong if they'll let you in. If you can find a bank in Hong Kong, I've got one or two. But where I think that people get in trouble is going on the internet and reading stuff that was published, having those win. We try and keep our stuff up to date, but obviously if it's written, I've got 2,000 different articles and videos out there. But there's still people in Hong Kong saying, we'll open you an account at HSBC. HSBC, I know 30 guys, and every time I go to their branch, just to kind of peek around, I hear somebody that looks like us with a tale of woe about how their account was frozen and they can't do business. And now there's nobody new who's being allowed into HSBC. Yet there's still these guys in Hong Kong running around saying, don't worry, we'll get you an appointment with HSBC.
Yeah.
So there's what works in practice, and then there's what works in theory. A lot of people talk about theory because they're the guy in Hong Kong. They sell Hong Kong companies. They sell advice. They've never done it.
Yeah.
They've never done. You have to do it because you see what actually happens on the ground. It's like people, on an off topic. Oh, if I go to this country, I can be a citizen in 3 years. Well, is that actually what's happening on the ground right now? I have no idea, but that's what the law says. Maybe they don't follow the law. I know guys in countries like that, oh, it's 3 years. They've been there for like 15 years. Nobody, they can't get it. So, there's practice and then there's theory. And I think that the problem that, sure, you could cobble together, you could look at the list of the best banks, the list of the best companies, tax trade, you could look at 29 different things and maybe cobble something together, but then you get into, that's theory, what's the practice? What's actually happening to people?
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up the interview. If people want to, read some stuff, watch some videos, and get in contact with Nomad Capitalist, what's the best way to reach you guys?
Yeah, just go to nomadcapitalist.com. We've got, as I said, over 1,200, 1,300 articles. We got the videos, the podcast, so it's a lot of stuff you can consume. One thing we didn't get to talk about was the residency thing. Do I need to have a place to live? That's a question that's increasingly interesting one, but we can get to that some other time. The issue is really every single piece works together, and for me, that's why I really limit the people that I'm talking to personally. Because what do I know about Chinese tax, or what do I know about Bulgarian this or that? But nomadcapitalist.com, if you're looking just to kind of read, that's maybe a good place to start. Lots of blogs, click and you can get a whole list of the best blogs. If you're looking for some help, big button at the top, click and go through the process. And, we get a lot of people who want help. Sadly, only a few can be helped. We have limited time, but definitely worth telling us your situation and seeing if it's a good fit.
Excellent. All right, well, thanks for taking the time out to sit down with us.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for you guys for watching. To see more digital nomad related stuff, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up on YouTube. And I will see you on the next one. See you guys.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend Morocco, and I think it's an underrated country because most people don't know about it. Yeah. And they don't think that they can get work done here, and they don't know that it's a safe country.
Yeah.
So, especially for Europeans, Europeans go to Thailand to live cheap and have internet and work remotely, while there is a country which is less than $100 just here in North Africa where they can get work done and live cheap and have a good lifestyle as well.